more cosplay project for you. It's another jester's hat. My previous one had 3 horns, which made it quite difficult actually for the pinning and for the sewing. So I wanted to have a simplified project for, say, your younger students or yourself if you're still a beginner on the sewing machine or cutting patterns. So this time around only has 2 horns, which has makes it a lot easier and easier to manage. So the only thing you need is 1 pattern, but remember to do a left and the right. So what you do is lay it down flat, and then for your second one, flip it over and do a left and do a right, or you'll end up with all rights. And you'll be stuck, especially if you have fabric that is, say, bad on one side. If your fabric is see-through or has the same pattern on the back side and the front side, you don't have an issue. But in this particular case, you do. So how to make your pattern is the only important measurement really is the bottom right here, the measurement from here to here. So how you come up with that is take a tape measure, measure the circumference of your head, and then in this particular case, divide by 4. So my head is about 24 inches. So I made mine about 6, and then I added about a ½ inch for seam allowance. So make sure you do add the seam allowance, or you end up with a lot of hats that are a little bit too tight. But the easy part about this is if they're too loose, you just go back on it with the sewing machine and add a little bit of seam allowance to tighten it up a little bit, to maybe customize to each individual head in your class. So after that, the other part of the horn of the hat is completely up to you. I found my previous tricorn jester hat was really quite small, so I'm making this one quite a bit bigger. And maybe add a little bit at the bottom for seam and roll up a little bit. So that's that. So I'm going to try to do this without pins, and I'm ready to go on my machine. In this particular case, I'm experimenting with some iron-on interfacing. I'm not liking it very much. It didn't stick extremely well, but with the stitching, I think it'll be okay. The whole point of this is to stiffen up the fabric a little bit. So the horns hold its shape a little bit, and it's because I really want to avoid using synthetic foam. It's horrible for the environment, but it's also extremely expensive. So I've been using balled up paper actually if I need to stuff stuff for either jester's hats, throw pillows, that sort of thing when I'm doing this with my students. So that's that. So I'll experiment, see if the iron-on interfacing works a little bit, but maybe you could come up with something else as well. The first thing that you do is the inside here on the top view, inside stitch, stop there because you're going to have to be opening that up and sewing it to the other half. So I'm going to start off on the bottom and work my way out. So we're just doing the outside or the inside stitch, inside curve. So what I did, if you didn't notice, I did both sides, but then flipped it flat. So as you can see the curve going this way. This is where the stitch goes from the side of the hat to the top of the horn. That's the tricky part in terms of making sure that hem or that stitch ends up nice and straight and doesn't take any fabric underneath it, so it doesn't lie flat. That's where the difficulty level of these projects go. But you shouldn't be intimidated by that. It's not completely straightforward, but it's also not completely impossible. And that's how you get good, better at things, as we all know as teachers. Before you start teaching these things, obviously you got to practice yourself and make sure that you're a so-called expert in the room. Okay, I think we're ready for some sewing. So I pinned the whole thing. I want you to see what the issue is in terms of sewing until the intersection of the two horns. That's where the project gets hard. And you have to make, I would say, at least two decisions. Where the intersection perfectly is, and that's where the curve of the pattern is, where it starts, but also where to stop sewing. So my tip, I think, of the day is I would say stop sewing like a quarter of an inch right before the intersection, and then stop, and then continue the outside of the horn. So we're talking about the outside of the hat where it meets the start of the horn. I would leave that quarter inch and then go at it with a hand needle and sew it by hand. Or if you're really good with your machine, get as close as possible to the intersection, and then stop, and you might not have, you're trying to avoid a little bit of a hole at the top of your head, at the top of your hat. So a little bit of hand stitching might be good, because I wouldn't go to the side of the head and then continue on one horn, because you might catch the adjacent horn below your stitch. And that's what happened to me with the tricorn. At the top, it's a little bit messy, not as neat as it could be. So depending on how much of a perfectionist you are, that's my advice. So I'm going to start at the top right here, so I can control exactly where I start. So, foot down. I'm always expecting these hats to be huge when I look at the pattern, but I'm always actually a little bit disappointed on how small they turn out to be. I think it's the seam allowance, just not picturing it properly, but let's see. It's not so bad. Get your seam, and turned out great. So a lot easier than the tricorn was. And you bring that down. We're going to fold this up a tiny bit. And you have yourself a jester set. So if you're not satisfied with how stiff your fabric is, obviously you could quilt it, or stuff the horns completely with balled up paper, that sort of thing. But the size is not so bad. And if you find it's a bit too big, obviously you could have it. You could go at it with the machine just on the sides, on this side, the front and back, and that'll obviously make it that much smaller. So give me 2 minutes and I will get the finishing of this hat prepared. Okay, welcome back. During my little break here, I prepared the bottom half, or the bottom brim, I guess you'd say, of the jester's hat. I wanted to stuff sort of a brim to make this, nice cushiony part, 3D, I guess, of the jester's hat. I've seen it a couple of times before. So what I did was I cut out a length of fabric. It's a bit stretchy, but don't go overboard with the hemming. So you're going to be doing this a bad side to bad side. Do a nice little hem to finish off your fabric, and then do bad side to bad side like this. And then you're going to be hemming it across here and then attaching it to the hat. I made mine about 6 inches wide to have a good 3 inches of brim. Then you'll lose a little bit to the seam allowance, so you'll end up with maybe 2.5 by the time you're finished. I also chopped off some of my jester hat. I made it way too long, which is fine. I would go on the side of too long than too short. All you have to do is just chop it off, roll it up, measure, and then chop it off. So I'll put this to the machine right here. So now that you have your brim of your hat sewed up, you need to put some stuffing down the middle of it to fill it up and make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. I'm using this wadding. You could also use stuff like balled up paper, newspaper. I've used it a couple of times. Has a little bit of a crunchy feel to it, but it's okay. And some mattress padding as well that you could sew right inside. So you don't need a lot of it, and put it in a little bit at a time. See if you can stuff it down the middle. It's just to give that three-dimensional feel and that little tiny costume quality to your projects. If you have any dowels or skewers, you might need some. And you just need to stuff it in, put it down, use your ruler to space it out a little bit as you stuff it in, just like this. You can go at it by both ends. This stuff is actually not that expensive. But when you need for a full class, I find it's a bit much. But it's a good experience, you know. Sometimes getting some really good materials is good for your students to see. But I know that half of your projects end up in the garbage at the end of the year anyway. So you could be the call, you know your budget. Okay, now that you have a bit of a snake, the tricky part is sewing it to the top of your hat. You want to have a nice finish. My ultimate goal is to tuck both ends into one another and finish it this way on the back of your hat. So you're going to have to get your pins out for this one and have a little bit of space at the end. So the idea, though, is you have to do good side to good side. And decide where the back of the hat and where the front of it. So you get your brim on the inside, and when you turn your hat inside out, it should work. And I emphasize the should. So to line up the middle and the seams, I would do that. And then start pinning. It's a bit of a stretchy fabric, so I can give myself a little bit of leeway, especially at the ends. And fudge it a little bit if you're too short in the end. But I think we'll be fine. Okay, I've finished pinning, and it's the perfect length, and I've tucked it inside. There might be a little bit of hand stitching at the very end, just to make sure the stuffing doesn't fall out of the brim. So inside, I pinned it inside the hat. I'm going to have a bit of a hard time stitching the whole entire thing, but I think it'll be okay. I'll go real slow and then turn the hat inside out, or right side in, I should say. Okay, the moment of truth. So that wasn't so hard. You just have to be very careful. And what I did was I took out pins as I went. And because there's always that risk of, one, getting your pins stuck underneath the foot, but also breaking your needle. When I was taking costume, I said, just leave the pins in, and the odds of your needle hitting that pin at exactly that side is very rare, but it does happen. So that, I think, will turn out okay. Let's turn this inside out, and let's see what this looks like. The stuffing of the rim really added some nice rigidity to the bottom. So I think it's just the horns that you could play with. I actually did a display with jesters hats, and I put wire on the inside, but that's really hard if you're going to be wearing it. So you don't want to be poking yourself. But there's probably loads of other things that you could stuff inside these horns to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. So you take yourself, grab a pencil, and poke out the corners of the horns so it's really nice and sharp. There you go. And then for the end right here, you're going to, I could probably just put it through the machine right now, or hand stitch it shut. I'm actually going to, maybe I'll just hand stitch it shut actually. I think that'll be the best way of doing it. And snip off. Let's see, I'm going to see if I can get this really nice and flat. Yeah, I'm going to hand stitch this. It's moving in my machine. And just like this, we could pin it and go in and out, and you'll be perfectly fine. And because of the stretchiness of the fabric, it turned out okay. Very hot on this summer day, but for Halloween, that's going to be perfect. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you use some of these ideas in your own crafts. And I hope you have some fun this summer making some cosplay costumes. Please stay tuned. I will have some more ideas and some more videos coming your way eventually throughout the summer. So thank you very much for coming. Tailored Art Projects, please check me out. We're getting up to like 175 videos on my channel, so please, there's probably definitely something that you could use for your middle school or even high school classrooms. Okay, have a great summer again, and I'll see you next time.